I can verify that.
Like all the boys don't go.
Hey?
Yes. Glowing blue. There you go. Head first. I should start now.
Are you sure he didn't hear you through the service?
I don't know.
Well, you see, you'll be able to hear him. It's whether or not he'll be recorded.
That's what I was.
But then the audio channels are split, so if the SD card works.
We love tech. Love a bit of tech, don't we? Love technology, Zoom calls, laptops, staring screens.
We've been here
SD
since
cards.
5. Sorting the technology.
We thought that was a good idea. Coming here very, very early was our downfall.
Oh, we got it all done.
Yeah, well.
We got it all done and then we took a break except for that.
It was the break that screwed us. It was the break that screwed us.
I had a nap, we had some fish and chips, it was great.
Ah, completely tuned out.
That's not my job, I don't know why you're laughing at me. Fuck.
That just died.
It's just the card, I don't know.
Ah, okay.
Okay.
Is that going to affect the whole like
Right.
thing?
If you reformat it, it will come to the time.
I
Ah,
don't,
yeah.
I don't know, I think we
I
probably,
think I think it's fine.
Actually, I'm the same.
yeah, it's probably time to start the show instead. Do you know what? We can put it to a vote. Hands up who wants us to break for 20 minutes and reformat an SD card.
Summer evening, drunk as hell, I lay down on the ground. The arms and legs of other men, they scattered all around. Some cursed, some prayed and cursed, and prayed and bled some more. The only thing that I could see was a pair of brown eyes that were looking at me. Now when we got back, little pal 1, 2, 3, there were no pair of brown eyes waiting for me. Let her roll, along the Radcliffe Road.
On a right road of an off day, that I made someday rude, that I saw the danger yet pass along the enchanted way, and I said, let rain be a falling leaf for the dawning of the day, for the dawning of the day.
I looked at him, he looked at me. All I could do was leave it by the ray and Philomena sang of my elusive dream. I saw the streams, the rolling hills, where his brown eyes were waiting. I thought about a pair of brown eyes that waited once for me.
On Grapple Green, where all roses meet, I see her walking now. Away from me so hurriedly, my reason was still loud. That I have loved, not as I should, this creature made of clay. When the angel moves the clay in loop, it wings at dawn of day. It wings at dawn of day.
Some drunk to hell, they left the place. Sometimes crawling, sometimes walking. A hungry sound came across the breeze, so I gave the walls a talking. I heard the sound from long ago, from the old canal. The birds were whispering in the trees, the wind was gently laughing. And a rope, and a rope, and a rope, and I go. A rope, and a rope, and a rope, and I go. On a rope, and a rope, and a rope, and I go. All along the Raglan Road. All along the Raglan Road. There you go.
2 and 1. Thanks very much, lads. We're Candlelit Tales. Welcome. We're going to tell you some stories. We're occasionally going to play you some songs.
That was very underprepared, but you know, we had to do it.
Love stories, they all end in tragedy.
They don't all end in
No,
tragedy.
some of them end in incest.
And then,
Battle and slaughter.
battle and slaughter is my favourite end.
Betrayal.
Betrayal happens, yeah.
Betrayal happens a lot.
Yeah.
Betrayal, death, incest, what else have we? Yeah, no, that's kind of pretty much it.
Happy
Yeah.
ever after? No?
For a while.
That's subjective.
Approximately. Approximately.
Listen, I will put it this way.
No.
In Irish mythology, all of eternity is contained within a day and a night. So if you can manage a day and a night where you consistently make each other happy, that is your fucking happy life. Alright? That's all, that's what you get.
Let's not be greedy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
let's not be greedy, guys. Come on.
All the universe happens in a day and a night.
Still hot in the morning, win.
So,
Exactly.
we're very excited to be back in the Harbour Bar and
Yeah.
actually seeing people with faces. Hi, look at you with your face. I'm fucking not.
Aaron has been
Great. Alright,
farm
it distresses me
in
not
rural
seeing
Guatemala
people.
for many months, and I think you forgot how to interact with you.
No, it's fine. I mean, like with the mask is what I meant.
Oh.
You know, hello you with the face with the mask.
I mean, they still have faces behind masks, I hope.
Sure, everyone can see them. There is cards on your tables, right? So the reason we put cards out is because we have a lovely set of stories. You know, most of them are desperately sad and tragic and end in gore.
Yeah.
But we have some
Desperately
options
sad.
for you.
Some people
okay?
are terrible and they die terribly and they deserve it.
I mean, I was
Yeah.
summarizing. But you know,
But
we were giving you the option for the last story of the first half. Okay, we're going to tell 3 stories. She's going to tell one, I'm going to tell one, and then we're going to leave it up to you. So get scribbling if you want to hear a happy ever after. There's literally one in Irish mythology, okay? There's
and
literally
it's very
one.
fucking debatable.
There's a raunchy one. There's a raunchy one.
Yeah. Pure writing.
Oh,
Just,
pure writing.
No
And
messing.
there's kind of a momentary romance. It's
Yeah.
very lovely, but for a moment.
Yeah.
So you can choose it's Angus Og, there's Boan, and then there's the dog named Morrigan for those of you.
For those of you who are in the know, if you want to pick by theme, or if you have a story that you just think you'd really like to hear tonight, you can also write that down. We might not do it, but you can ask.
Yeah.
We like to know, you know?
We like to know.
So, she's floating around with the GoPro.
You can make yourself comfortable there, Mary. You don't have to like.
You don't actually have to sit on the floor.
Kneel
You don't
over.
make her interns.
You've already got a knee. Look at that. Stay in there, Mary. All right, Mary.
Don't listen.
Christian Brothers team.
All right, we better get the first story underway, guys. 'Cause you're all
Just before we
patiently
do,
waiting.
because they are impatiently waiting, but we usually have a tip jar in the Harbour Bar back in
We do.
the before times.
Before the long ago.
in the long ago.
Time before now.
We no longer have that because nobody carries cash anymore because cash is full of germs. We have a virtual tip jar. If you have cash, you are very, very free to tip us in cash if you feel like it. This is all optional. If you don't, there are 2 different QR codes over here, one for PayPal and one for Revolut. And you can virtually throw us a few quid.
How
If
organized are we?
You want to.
Where's the tip jar?
It is.
Okay, so
we
we don't
need a
actually have a
glass
tip
jar.
jar, right? So we just went all out QR codes and
We
forgot
just-
about the jar. Mary,
we just-
I asked you for a tip jar.
We just went fully for the QR codes tonight.
Yeah.
You can. Do you know what? You can slip it under the brim of Oisin's cap.
Yeah,
Nobody
yeah.
actually gives you any actual cash for it.
Silent donation thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Fantastic.
all about the silence and the ambience.
Like a tax.
That's it. So our first story of the night begins. A very long time ago, there was a great battle in a place called Ventry. See, the king of the world tried to invade with all of the armies of the world. This is not that story. That story is the story of the Fianna coming along and kicking the ever-living shit out of the king of the world repeatedly for a year until he was dead and all his followers scattered. It's a great story. It's on the podcast. You should check it out. But one person from the king of the world's army survived. The king of the world had a daughter named Mish. And when Mish lived through this terrible year, this year that was supposed to be a sweeping triumph, driven away, driven first mad and then to death, something came a little bit loose in the head of Mish. And she wasn't killed in the final battle, though everyone she ever knew and loved was killed before her. Instead, she ran up into the mountains. And there she stayed. And whatever had come loose inside of Mish was the thing that connected her to her humanity. And up in the mountains, she went wild. And more than just wild, dangerous, feral. Her hair grew. Not just the hair on her head, but the hair on her body, the hair on her face. Thick and fur like an animal. Her fingernails grew into claws. Her teeth twisted to fangs. And people started to tell stories about the wild woman of the mountains. People started to avoid that haunted mountain. They even named it for her, Sleeve Mish, the mountain of Mish. And they gave it a wide berth because anybody who didn't give it a wide berth, they had about equal odds of coming back telling you a story about a ferocious, terrifying, howling, raging, half beast, half woman, and not coming back at all. She prowled that mountain. She made it her own territory, her own home, and she was the terror that haunted the minds of all those who lived nearby. Now there was a certain king locally, and he heard that Mish was not just this wild beast she was often thought of. He heard the story. She was the daughter of the king of the world who had come all those centuries ago to attack Ireland, and that her wildness had its root in her grief. And so this king, instead of hunting her down, instead of trying to attack her, he offered a reward for anyone who could remind her of who she was, of her humanity. She was a human being and could connect to other human beings. And a young poet, idealistic young fella, called Dobrish, he put the hand up and said, I'll give it a go. So he waited until spring, because he figured he'd have to be outside for a bit. Didn't want it to be too cold. And he went up the mountain, this haunted, terrifying mountain. He waited for a day when the sun was shining, at least for a while, and he spread out his cloak before him, and on the cloak he put gold coins scattered across. And then he took off all of his clothes and he laid them to the side. And then he took out his instrument and he started to play the most beautiful music that he could play. And as the music spilled out from where he sat and waited and carried over the mountain, through the mists, through the trees, and the rocks, and the branches, he heard a heavy sound of breathing coming from behind him. And he could feel her before he saw her. He definitely couldn't smell her. She leaned close to him. He could smell the blood on her breath, stale and foul. She leaned in, she listened to the music. And then he saw a long, clawed hand extend over his shoulder and point at one of the gold coins. And a voice rusty with disuse said, "What's that?" Doveridge said, that is a gold coin. Isn't it beautiful? The way it glints in the sunlight. She said, I remember that. And he said, yeah, no, you'd remember that. You would have seen gold plenty. And after another little while, the hand extended around, curled around him and scratched the wood with his lute. What's that? He said, this is music. I'm a bard and I make music. And the voice said, I remember that. And then she came around to the side a little bit. She pointed at him right between the legs as he stood there naked, cross-legged, playing his lute. What's that? And he said, that's my tricking stick. What trick does it do? Do you want me to show you? So he showed her. Put his guitar down and showed her the trick of the tricking stick. And when she was feeling a little calmer, she said, that's a good trick. Again. And he said, no. We need to wait a little while, you see. Everything has to happen
Just give me a break.
in the right order.
Just give me 10 minutes.
Okay, so first we're gonna find out about bathing.
Very important.
So we showed her, reintroduced her to the concept of bathing. Not just drinking from a pool, but actually getting into it, getting the ticks off her skin. She kind of got into it after a while, splashing around. But then she got out and started rolling around in the mud and kind of undid all the hard work. And then she said, I'm hungry. You hungry? And he said, yeah, no, I could eat. She said, wait, now we're doing the trick again. And she came back a few minutes later, dragging in her teeth a deer that she had killed with her bare hands. She flung it down before Doveridge and she said, he said, okay, that's great. We're going to learn it. All that summer, Doveridge taught Mish. It wasn't really teaching, it was reminding, because all those years ago when she had been the daughter of the king of the world, she'd known all of this stuff. She knew bathing, she knew cooking, she knew eating, she knew cutting her nails, she knew walking upright. It just took a little while to get it back into her head. And if ever she got bored or sick of the whole thing, he'd show her the trick again. And by the end of the summer, Doveridge asked Mish to come down from the mountain with him. Come with him to the court of the king where she could be presented as the king's daughter she once was, and maybe even stay with him. And Mish said yes. And Mish came down off the mountain. From that day on, Slieve Mish was safe. Enough. And Mish and Doveridge, they were happy. Enough. Until the day they weren't. But that's another story.
Gotta love a possibly kind of a bit happy ending.
Like I said, it's happy for a little bit and that's what you get.
So you might have heard of Cuchulainn, and I'm going to tell you a short little story about Cuchulainn. Now there was one particular woman who used to look into a pool of water and call down the sun and the power of the moon in the sky to view full form this beautiful boy, man-child, type of thing. It was kind of weird because he basically was about 7, but everyone fancied him like a fully grown man because he was an absolute ride. So this particular woman was very mad about this particular mad man-child ride of a fella. Well, he was because everyone knew his father was Lou, the sun god, one of the Tua de Danann. His mother was Decra of the Ulster clan, the Cray and Rua. She was the hound that you remember from your childhood. Remember the hound?
Yes.
There was 3 problems with Cuchulainn though. Do you remember those 3 problems? He was too daring. He was
Too young.
too young. Dramatic pause. And he was too damn pretty. You can't trust a pretty boy! Didn't your mother ever tell you, don't trust a pretty boy? Terrible, it's awful, you can't fucking do it. And so all of the men of Ulster were not fucking happy with this fella. Because all of the wives would swoon, all of the girlfriends would blush, and, well, he was riding all around them. So, regardless of it, he was just getting more action, and they weren't very happy about it at all. And he clearly was doing something right in bed, because people were coming back for more. So, they all...
7 fingers on each hand.
He did have 7 fingers. That's what they like. Doing it, I'm not sure what. His fingers everywhere, anyway. He was very good at placing fingers in different orifices. Anyway, he was very good at lots of different things. Now, eventually he was taken off to see his match, to meet his match, Emer. Now, she was beautiful, she was gorgeous, she was only to die for. She had 7 great valors of womanhood, which is many kind of outdated things, but she had sweet speech and gifts of, well, needlework and cunning and guise and wisdom and words, as well as sweet speech and singing. Now, this was all well and good, and when Cuchulainn and this woman met, they had a duel of tongues, as one would be. They lashed each other out of it. Not down the back of the theatre, didn't get a hand shandy, no! They actually, they tried to outwit each other with rows and clans and forms of linguistic speech that in old Asquelia made sense to them, but when you write them down and translate them, they lose all fucking meaning, except for one, where, well, Emer said, you know, any man brave enough to come and seek out these mountains would have to be a very wise and very noble man. And, well, Cuchulainn looked at Emer and said, you know, there's a bare mountain ranges there now, and a man could definitely see himself. Well, I can see myself planting a sword right between the 2 mountains. Up here, buddy, up here. So, they were married and they were... Now, there was this other woman I mentioned before who used to look at the moon and the sun in the sky, and, well, she would peer into the water and look at her favorite pet. Her boy child, the beautiful Cuchulainn. She would look through this pool and seek out, and eventually she heard he was in Munster. And she came up to him to profess her love for him. And when Cuchulainn saw the Cailleach walking towards him with long stringing grey hair all the way from her head down to her toes, and long scraggly, well, pubic hair scratching the bottom of the floor between her toes, and the warts and the naples and the ugly twists and turns in the nose and the eye, one big and one small, and the drool and the teeth and pointing out different ways, he said, hello, how are you? Please don't love me. I beg of you, please. Place your love somewhere else. For the love of all things good. But she said, no. I'll be having you. So she leapt at him in a form that I can't imagine was only a form of thrusting at him in a hope that he might thrust towards her. But he didn't. He evaded her, and he ducked and he dodged, and he ran as fast as the fucking wind. He ran so fast he cleared on right past everybody. A blur he was seen running all the way down to the tip of, well, Clare. Leap Head. He was there, and at Leap Head he realised he couldn't go any further as the Cailleach there was bearing down on him. And then he took out his sword and his shield and said, if you really want to go this, you're going to have to go past this. And then she took out her deadly knives and threw them at him, and then he was ducking and diving and jumping around saying this was really out of hand. I just said, fucking no consent. Seriously. Fuck's sake. What is this like? So he let the great salmon leap across where the land met
a land bridge, but there was no bridge there at all. It had fallen decades before. And so he was landed on a stack that is still there to this day. And looking out at the Caligera, she leapt, but she didn't realise she was shy of jumping. And she plummeted all the way down. And he just saw the scene turn red and bloody. And he said, bloody love stories. No, another bloody one. Okay, so we're gonna have one last story.
And getting the cards from you
So
guys.
Mary's gonna go around.
And there are loads of seats if anybody wants to come in and sit down. I'm sure there are plenty of seats.
So this is the new thing now. We like to try and
Catch ourselves off guard.
as it were, or catch her off guard because it's her turn to tell the story.
But there are three options.
Wait a minute,
Okay.
I didn't consent to this.
Oh dear. Okay, so there's three stories here. There's literally one happy story, there's a raunchy story, and there is fleeting romance.
Yeah.
So we're gonna what
You
we've
just,
seen
you
both.
just write down what thing you want, and if you haven't already, and hand it to Mary, and she's going past it. She's going to GoPro.
Okay, while we're waiting for that, Sorry, tell us the greatest chat-up line in Irish mythology.
So the lovers, Nisha and Deirdre of the Sorrows, famous like instigators of the fucking entire Táin Bó Cúailnge in one way. The very first time they met, she was the most beautiful woman who had ever been born. He was the biggest ride in the Red Branch, and Cuchulainn was in that, and we've already heard about him. And when they first locked eyes with each other, it was love at first sight. It was absolutely electric. And he turned to her and he said, "It's grand and big, the cows grow when there's no bulls to tame them."
Great chat-up line.
It worked. She ran away with him.
Indeed. Not my favourite of all of them though. Hang on, what was the one? Oh yeah, my favourite one is when Bress's father, well, he arrives, he was one of the Fomorians, he arrived. What was the mother's name? Can't remember? I don't know. One of the two did that, and she was on a boat, and he arrived out of nowhere and said, out of nowhere now, and said,
Literally out of nowhere.
"It's a lovely day for love making." And that was it, that's all he had to say. Done. So yeah, full of lots of very charming ways to get the ride. Try it out in Coppers, and it's open again. It's like,
Yeah, it's a good
I'm
idea.
sure that's going to work eventually. You said,
Too many words. Too many words for covers, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't put it close.
I think we might have a winner.
I definitely saw side written a lot.
Yeah, there was two of them.
Yeah. So we got two sides.
A wild swing between the two of those. Side was the saddest one you can possibly have, and Episode is the only arguably happy one.
Yeah, side has nothing to do with happiness at all.
We've a vote for How Dermot Got His Love Spot, or How Dermot Got His Groove Back, which is not actually How Dermot Got His Love Spot. I don't know that story.
I mean, that's the love spot. That's the love spot.
It's
That's
probably the love spot.
okay.
May's Pillow Talk, but we've 3
4.
for the raunchy story.
Oh! Yeah, I kind of knew that was going to happen.
Which one is raunchy?
The raunchiest one? Okay.
That one.
Yeah, this is the Doctor Margaret.
Yeah. Yeah.
Raunchy.
I heard them.
Give the people what they want.
I will. Listen, the first thing you have to know is you have to know the Dagda. Because the Dagda was the good god. Not because he was morally good, although, arguably, relatively speaking, maybe. But because he was good at everything. He was good at every single skill there was. He was a good brewer, he was a good cook. He had a cauldron of plenty. No matter what you wanted, you'd reach into that cauldron and pull it out. Nice meal. We love a man who can cook. And the Dagda, as well as a cauldron, as well as all his skills, he had a harp. And with his harp, he could play any emotion he wanted into your heart. Musicians, man. And he was a lover of life, and he was a lover of food, and he was a lover of everything. Great big man. Big, strong warrior. Big, strong belly and big, strong buttocks. And, lest we forget, Dagda had the biggest club you've ever seen. So big was his club, it would take 10 men to lift it.
Why would you get 10 men to lift it?
Why, indeed.
I mean, like, that's just a big. I'm not going to say anything. Carry on.
And with one end of the club, he could kill you, and with the other end, he could bring you back to life.
Wow.
The club is a metaphor. Now,
No, I don't think it is. Nah, couldn't be. What? A hold! Shocked and horrified.
don't believe it.
Oh my god.
Anyway, Dagda had a little bit of a problem. It was the eve of a battle. The two of the Danan were taking on the Fomorians, the Freewomen. Dagda was a little bit nervous about this because they were terrifying. Scary people lived under the sea. Bit of a Cthulhu vibe, you know? Very fucking cosmic horror. Oozing up out of the deeps and coming after you. So he decided he would go to the Morrigan, goddess of war, and see if he could maybe meet her in one of her kinder aspects. Because she had a few. She could appear to you as the Kalyok, that twisted hag. She could appear to you as a beautiful woman, with red hair and pale skin. She could appear to you as a raven or a battle crow. Or she could kind of pick and mix, depending on how she was feeling that day. So he was hoping for one of the kindlier aspects when he went to seek out the Morrigan and ask her for her favour in battle. There was a very reliable way of getting the Morrigan to favour you. You just had to make her happy. Now, the Morrigan heard him coming. Great big footfalls, shaking the ground as he walked. And when he saw her, he called out to her and he said, "Ah, lady, great goddess, I come here to bed." And she said, shut the fuck up. I'm wise to you, we've been down this road before, you and I. I know what you're after, you're fucking after something, because you're over there. I'll tell you what, I'll give you my favour, if you please me. I'm not going to make it easy for you. She walked over to a nearby river. She put one foot on one back. Do your best. She stood with one leg on either side of the fast-flowing flood. And the Dagda, he had to think about it for a second. He went upstream. And he stretched himself out in the river. And he lay back. Until the water started to lift him and float him and carry him. And as he rounded the bend before he came to where the Morrigan was standing, he raised his hand. And the river flood carried him down to where she stood and carried him no further. And he pleased her. And then he pleased her again because he didn't need no fucking 10-minute break. What? He was the good God. He was good in everything. And yeah, she favoured them in the battle. They won. It's all good. It's the happiest ending you're going to get tonight.
Alright, well, we're going to take a break there on that note, and we're going to tell one more story in the second half, but it's a bit of an epic, so stay tuned. See you back in 10. I thought you were going to preference that one. I suppose the smaller 50 shades of Bray. Shades like, used to.
Those are two of my favorites.
It's kind of
Oh, no, I won't. Then it gets halfway, and then people start rewriting the whole thing. And then it was manuscript. So she read it and she's dying. She thought, "You want me to do it?" I was like, "I don't have to do this. I have to do this which way it is." Here I am, big photographer. So she's probably gonna do that. I don't know what that is. I hope it's like the same video, but I don't know. I was like, oh, no. I am formatting SD card.
I like the Valentines.
do the tech thing.
We're the same, and everyone's just go.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? And they're like, instead of
Oh,
yeah. I wanted to try and get a harp sound.
yeah, I was doing that.
Oh, when you go off the break, I just dropped that one actually.
Oh, he's not like,
Yeah.
are you still gymming and stuff? Yeah, every day.
It's like a little lean. He's a craft.
Do shit. And someone on my craft exactly. I was at the last.
You would have complimented for you
It's the story of Bray.
Did she? I have her book, I haven't read it yet.
Oh, it's amazing. So Bray,
That is why I moved.
cool.
This is the love,
Yeah, yeah,
the,
yeah.
like the true love of Queen of Fear of the final round, Fair Irish,
Fair
daughter of Queen of Monarch. Oh my god. He's like a footnote in most telling crimes. And the love story of it is like absolutely amazing. Makes you really hate all the old husband of May.
Yeah, he's
a lot more.
a dick in this story.
I mean, he's a dick in most stories.
I
This is
firmly
all
find him to be a prick most of the time.
Yeah. And it's just, oh, yeah, I haven't heard that story. I've forgotten a lot of it because this is like in an 8-week intensive or harrowing the time. And it was always amazing. You've got to get that book.
Karina Tynan has written a book called Tom.
You don't know. Pretty pleasant.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's this really beautiful book, and her daughter illustrated it, and she does these amazing retellings of the myth of the Bard every year. Which was the Clare Island one. She does all the women's point of views. And she's been threatening to publish for years, and she never has, but she finally did.
And she's the reprint. This is a cover for a reprint. Yes. Her face was on Trinity on Tuesday. Yes, you would like this. Yes, Melanie did. Melanie's doing the course.
Oh, is she?
Yeah. She's at the Bard in 2018. Have you heard that the Bard is back this year?
I have not, but I haven't. I was at an open night up there a little while back.
6 till 9.
You love it.
Would love that.
Yeah, literally only just today someone was telling me about this. I didn't realise it was a thing at all. They're like, oh, you like storytelling. Do you go to the storytelling festival? I'm like, no, what?
Well, there's a
I live under a
this
rock.
is there's a storytelling festival on Cape Clear, and then there's the Bard on Clare Island, and they are the Clare Island one is the Bard. It's not really a storytelling festival; it's more of a deep dive into like deep immersion, like a Jungian kind of perspective, and deep dive
This
into
year
the
is
politics.
the return of the goddess.
It's great. It's really really cool.
I'm going to find it this week if I have that week off work. That's what I'm just going to find it this week off work. I'm going to go on there. I'm going to. Oh yeah, what happened? Oh yeah, the casting.
You love this.
They do.
Oh, I know,
whatever
from
you just take care of.
JFC.
We could make cars over.
Jesus fucking Christ. Yeah.
We could make it a
You can look at if it's different. Then you can book your van over. If like
It's easier to. It's probably easier to get around.
what's the name of Cape Clear Festival?
Cape Clear Storytime Festival. I think it's just Cape Clear Storytime.
Do you want to drink Sean's down or is it text if you want to drink?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm taking over.
Please don't worry about it.
Formatting an SD card. That's the fucking plan. Until the next variant.
I mean,
Just keep drinking. Have a Guinness it'll fill you up.
I'll have until whatever it's called.
Exactly. We'll have until the next flu season before the next wave of plague hits us.
I
So.
might cool down in March because change, you know.
We wouldn't know. Anyway, listen, we're going to be back here. This already goes. Yeah, probably be 1 month before I next week we can get back to doing well, we're kind of thinking, fewer gigs and bigger venues aside from here. Now, how do I format an SD card on?
I'm lost.
I never did it on
You can just see it.
I was like,
New records because they're almost scratch. I'm lost because
They were pretty heckly throughout. It's nice. It's great. Everyone's forgotten their manners because they've been inside too fucking long. It's great.
makes good everything. Just keep doing it.
we have a large one.
He's keeping us.
I literally can't
Love it.
I have already made like 7 notes. I have like freaking configuration inspired is to be freaking.
There you go. I'm sorry.
I know you can't do that.
I have to say that's right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You were. Tell me that story again because I heard Morrigan, I heard podcast, and I heard Salon.
I was listening to that story yesterday on my headphones while I was doing my shopping, and as the Dagger was floating down the river and racing the boat, I was walking past a long aisle of cold meats. And now that story is replicated as it was.
I
I
love
feel like the Dagda would approve. You know, it's food, it's phallic.
I remember a lot of weird moments on David transcripts where it's like, should I be wearing headphones, Leslie? So I know my parents are just randomly wearing.
Oh yeah, you have religious parents. Probably.
No, absolutely.
So if I do restore on this,
Have you moved your stuff up?
yeah.
Is it working?
Yeah.
Surface learning how to be a tech wizard.
I'm figuring out how to fucking do a thing.
Did your one go up for more
Erase.
points? No?
No. What format do I want it? The SD card?
Fat. Or
Okay. There's XFAT and there's MS-DOS FAT.
DOS fat.
DOS FAT.
We're still live on YouTube.
Grant still have got a lot of.
Oh, interact. People love when you interact with people on YouTube.
Ready?
Yes.
Go talk to the YouTube people there.
Go
Hey
tell them
YouTube.
Tell them how wonderful they are.
How are you doing? apparently you love it if I interact with you. We're just taking a little break, and there's a few people watching, so I decided to pop on here and say hello. Thanks for subscribing, liking, and doing all the rest of it. It's we did a few nights of storytelling in Guatemala recently, so you might have seen the links to those. And if not, well, they're in our YouTube playlist of live shows. We'll have more live shows coming as we announce them. Hopefully you'll be staying tuned on social media, our website, see what's going on. We love to hear comments from you guys as well, so thanks very much for reaching out, for subscribing, for hitting the like button. We just got monetized, so a few cents are getting thrown in for every few plays, which is great. I'm not talking to myself. So this is the problem about YouTubing.
Just talking to the box in the corner.
You're just talking to the imaginary people in your heart.
Honestly, I don't know.
Listen, I don't believe they're there until they comment.
They're commenting.
Thank you for commenting.
They say hello. Hey, Aaron. Hello from New York, USA.
Hey from New York, or hey New York from Ireland. Ha! See? My sister was laughing at me saying that I was talking to no one, so thank you for validating my existence. Jesus.
It definitely wasn't.
Anyway, hello from New York, and
I'm officially on the live chats now.
wherever else you are from. Hope you're having a good night, evening. I guess it's during the day. Morning.
It's probably fucking morning.
It's not morning. Afternoon. Yeah?
East Coast, West Coast is 8 minutes. East is
8? Jesus. Well, okay.
New York's 5 minutes.
Early for you
Having a
guys.
nice time.
People are absolutely lovely.
It's nice and dark and cold here, and it's time for pints. So, yeah, I have a pint of tea coming at me. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking because everyone's coming back in.
They're going to take questions. It's a real thing.
Are reformatting the SD card?
Oh yeah.
So we're just gonna not have that.
These are the people who microwave water to make tea.
I mean that's not getting recorded now.
Oh no, it's getting recorded.
Just on a move.
Yeah. Oh
Which is
no.
fine.
So you're gonna like report. You're nothing to redo over lockdown, so you just bought all the GoPros.
Yeah, we did.
Yes.
Where's the camera?
Where is the camera?
I'm looking at the light to see. Oh, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, just show it down a second. See your
Yeah. We bought it years ago. We bought it when we first started doing the podcast. When Oisin was like 20 years ago, this was a van. Showed me how it worked. It does everything. Yeah, really.
Thanks for listening, guys. Giant Causeway, Causeway Giant, thank you very much. Gaurav Mila Margaret, Lego student, hilarious, hello, and the handmaidens, brilliant. Thanks so much, lads. Until pretty, Cuckold and Freddy is a bitter love story. It is. Two lads get it off each other. In fairness, it's very true. Listen to Ruth tell that. Anyway, guys, I think I got all of you. Oh, Marcus, hello, Marcus. Thanks a million, and we'll chat to you in a bit.
Oh no, you didn't. D&D game is on the Asian for you. We're here tonight instead of so we're pausing. Are we doing the thing
Sorry.
again?
Oisin's not here.
Questions on here. Well, then what's fucking
Sorry, I didn't know.
And is that what it says?
You know, I see that every time I see this, I'm like, oh, imagine working with my brother. It's like, oh, it was
We got really annoyed that it wasn't all getting to you, it was something else. Yeah, that's what sister was like, her brother.
Yeah, we did one with one of the podcasts, and all I hear is, no, you can't steal that pen, it's a fan for No, that's a bonus after, just that no. Why is this pen not like good? It just wouldn't fucking do it.
So, this is a love song.
A participatory love song.
Audience participation.
It's easy to participate. Mostly you just have to go, yeah, when I say, yeah. Let's try again.
It's very intuitive.
Yeah. And then it was originally called the Maid from the Cabaret, and then it was also known as the Portuguese Sailor, and then it finally got abbreviated to the Portuguese, or actually, I'll say it properly, the Portuguese. Will you play the part? Do the Portuguese for us. And me, I came from Donnybrook, a 1 and a 5 ride. But there was a fly in the ointment that you very seldom see. Cause although I loved her terrible well, she was in love with a Portuguese. Yeah. Now he was a nasty piece of work, Rosales was his name, and he took for to courting her, concepted who was me dame. Yeah. So I made a vow with a Grand Canal that I would do him in, because I didn't like them Portuguese, and in particular I didn't like him. Yeah. So we followed him up to Grafton Street one evening just for fun. I followed him up to Mercer's, not far from the Bardley Dun. And I spied him through the window, and they were kissing and holding hands. And there he was seducing her with pints of baby sham. Yeah. So I followed him up to his lodgings in Rockgard or thereabouts. I followed him up an alleyway, and I battered him inside out. He gave off many a note till he was dead, I'm sure. And I lifted up that manhole lid and dropped him down that sewer. Yeah. Now when the Machi heard of this, she made me life a hell. So just for the sake of peace and quiet, I done her in as well. And now I'm up before the judge to answer for me crimes. Says he, I didn't mind that first one, son, but not that second time. Yeah. So it's all for this crime of passion, I landed in Mountjoy. It's all for the love of this fair young maid and a Portuguese sailor boy. And if I ever get out again, his life you'll change, I'll see. Oops. And I'll marry a mutt from Ballier who wouldn't look at a Portuguese. Yeah.
Oh, it's gorgeous. It's so romantic. So romantic and lovely. I feel so tingly and warm inside.
Yeah,
As you should do on this lovely day.
absolutely. Valentine's Day. Time for crimes of passion. Passion. Regular crimes.
Yeah, they're not as fun as passion, right?
Just crimes. Just a little light crime.
All right. Don't.
We're getting sidetracked again.
Getting sidetracked.
Right.
All right. Back on track. So we're going to tell you a new story. A story that I have recently heard, and I now love it.
This is our first time telling this story live, actually.
Yeah, that's going to feature.
We're gonna have to work that into the story now.
Already have.
All right.
Don't worry. So, yeah, this is actually coming out on a podcast on Wednesday, but with this is a special edition because it's live and we're winging it. So, Fred, he was born a baby in the other world. Now,
Bathing was the daughter of the goddess Boan. Sister of the goddess Boan. I got it, she's here.
Sorry.
Don't be sorry. Don't be bloody sorry at all. It's just another bloody love story. So, when Frigg was born in the other world, with his mother, Baleen, and his aunt, Boan, well, they doted on this beautiful little baby boy. His face shone like the sun. His eyes were so open wide, the whole sea seemed to fit inside him. And suddenly there were more women around than had been before, 50 to be exact. And they cooed and cuddled and passed the baby boy from one arm outstretched to the next, and well, he fed on many a breast. He was very, very happy because he was being passed from breast to breast, and well, this was the best raising a little baby boy could have in the other world. And when he grew up around such secure love and attachment, he found that everything he wanted was always almost given to him. Almost, but not quite. Because Bathing, well, she knew she had to prepare her son for the scold and to tell him no and to prepare him for the hardships he would surely face. And his aunt, Boan, took another tack. She gave him everything he wanted. And she gave him 50 amazingly beautiful cows with red ears. Now, this might not be significant to you now, but that's like 50 MacBook Pros. Way back when. Imagine, cows were good. A cow was good. 50 cows were great. A magic cow was better than 50 cows. 50 magic cows, you can imagine.
It was insane.
Mental altogether. These cows always gave milk. This was the time when Irish people lived on milk.
We had not yet had potatoes.
They were new. Like
We
relatively
lived
speaking.
on milk,
Soft
thick milk, and chewy milk,
And that runny milk in between the two.
and occasionally runny milk.
You call it buttermilk.
I really like chewy milk. That's a medieval text that somebody translated and sent to me once. That's what they called it. It's my favourite thing. Anyway, getting back to Frigg.
We call it cheese. So,
Maybe.
Frigg was, well, he was beloved by all of these beautiful women of the other world. And he saw so much beauty in them, he, well, wasn't overly looking forward to the real world. Because when he stepped through the veil and into this real world and this island of Ireland that he'd heard so much about, the wind was harsh in his skin, the sun wasn't as strong, and the nights were so much colder than he could have imagined. And when he spent time in the real world, in Ireland, walking around, many people came and saw a beautiful man, strong, fierce and formidable, and saw so much potential, projected so much meaning onto his actions, and gave to him gifts and wealth and trophies, and many took displeasure in the fact that his love was not bestowed onto them. And so oftentimes it was that Frigg found himself in tricky situations he had no idea how he got himself into. Because one minute they were being really nice to him, and then all he was very pretty. Did I mention he was pretty?
He was so great.
And so whenever he would, get a few scuffs, or hurt his heart, or break his, leg or something, well, the hills would open up, and 50 women from the other world would come out, singing and dancing and playing merriment in a way that they could take him off to the other world to displace his dismay. And he'd be right as rain when he came back because, well, he had 50 godmothers from the other world. And he was very pretty. Now, he heard of an extremely beautiful woman who was the daughter of a very formidable couple in Connaught. And her name was Finnever. The greatest part about her were, well, her namesake. Her amazing, beautiful, graceful. I think he must have assumed, because he never got to see them, But her eyebrows just really seemed to be so fantastic. He really got curious. He wanted to see these eyebrows. After all, her name was Finiver of the Fair Eyebrows. And so he decided to go to Croagh. And he took such an amazing group with them. They were all gleaming with shining armor, gold encrusted jewels, with jewels encrusted gold. Think about it, it's two things. It's magic. And they had so many amazing, beautiful trophies to spy on top of their chariots as they were marching towards Croagh that they were knowing that they were displaying great wealth in front of Maeve and Ollie of Connacht. Just to make sure they were welcomed very well.
So they arrived to Croagh, to the plains before Rog Croagh, stronghold of Maeve and Ollie. And they set up their tents there. Just all of this entire company of hot people. They just rolled up and took their shirts off and started putting the tents on. Singing to each other, playing a bit of music, wandering around, maybe letting their towel fall. It's taking a while to bend over and pick it up again. Everything was very languid. And they got a little intrigued, they got a little curious. Now their daughter, Finiver, she already had a good idea who it was. Because as stories were told of her around Ireland by the bards and poets, and so word of her beauty had come to Frigg, so stories were also told about this young man, Frigg, son of a mortal king and an immortal goddess, with his 50 magic cows and his extremely pretty everything. And so she had a little bit of a, well, it's hard to have a crush on someone you've never seen, but we can all manage it. So she kind of felt half in love with him already. She didn't want her parents to know about that because they were a particular set of parents. So she said nothing to them when Maeve and Ollie went out to meet Frigg. Now Maeve and Ollie were not accustomed to being easily impressed, but Maeve saw this beautiful young man just kind of lounging on a couch in front of the Fitchel board that was inlaid with gold and jewels. The most intricate, beautiful board she had ever seen in her life. And her husband looked at her with her tongue practically hanging out of her head and he said, you want literally nothing more in the world than to go play chess with that boy. And she said, yeah, you know what, just fuck up. And she walked straight over to Bray and started playing Fitchel with him. And they got really absorbed in this game. It was very intense. There was move and there was counter move and there was ploy and there was counter ploy. He was not just a pretty face, although
Very pretty.
And even Maeve, whose name meant the one who intoxicates men, was getting a little fucking distracted. In fact, they might not actually have been that good at Fitchel. They might have just been continually distracting each other. It's hard to tell. But all the while, the musicians of Frigg were playing, and they played such beautiful music that 12 of the attendees of Maeve and Ollie just died of how beautiful. Just overwhelmed by the beauty and the hot people. And after
They were moderate people back then.
it was a lot. Most people had like crooked teeth and fucking acne scars. These people were unreal. And the music, anyway. After a while, Ollie tapped Maeve on the shoulder and she said, "What? Fuck what?" And he said, that's how they talked.
After they watched Black Books.
Hey, we all know he copied me. And Ollie pointed out to his dear wife that she had been playing fiddle with this beautiful young man for 3 days and 3 nights. And Maeve was fucking mortified because she hadn't fed them. She hadn't given them a drop to drink, she hadn't given them a bite to eat for 3 days and 3 nights because the jewels on the walls of the tent of Freg were so bright that she hadn't realised. She hadn't seen the sun setting and rising again. It was like being in a casino. She was completely out of time. And so, in an absolute panic, she laid on the biggest and best feast she could possibly lay on really, really quickly. And while she was scrambling to get this feast together, Freg took himself out for a little walk along by the river. Because he'd heard in a story Finnever liked to go there. And he just kind of happened to wander and put himself in such a place. And just, you know, he didn't do it consciously, but he just kind of threw a little bit of a pose that artists would have wept to see. And when Finnever saw him, she thought, ah yes, that'll do. There's clearly no exaggeration going on anywhere there. Every line was perfect, he just looked delicious. So she sauntered over playing it cool, and he turned to her and said, and Finnever said, I mean, interesting, but no.
It is a good line.
It's, you know.
It's one of many good lines in the film. I just thought one of the.
We already had the cow one, you know. I don't think I've talked that one. She said, yeah, well, you know, I'm flattered. Don't get me wrong. I'm not opposed to the idea of maybe a wedding, but I'm the daughter of the Queen of Connacht, and I'm not going to run away with you, because you know.
Way to ruin the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Bringing in her mother at a wedding. First conversation.
Yeah, I just mean like for the night. That's what I would have interpreted.
I don't know. Anyway, he asked her to elope and she said no. And then she said, you know what? I reckon if you ask my parents, they'll probably say yes to you because they're hard to impress, but they haven't fucking stopped talking about you since you arrived here. Except for when my mom was playing chess with you for 3 entire days and nights. So, you know, we could be a little bit more upfront about this, is all I'm saying. We don't need to run away together. She was a bit cracked. And so she gave him a ring from her finger. She said, look, my mother told me to keep this ring safe. This particular ring is a very important, nay, symbolic ring that my mother gave to me and told me not to give away until I met the man that I would marry. And so I'm going to give it to you now. She gave him the ring from her finger. Freg said he would keep it safe.
Meanwhile, Maeve and O'Leil were having a discussion about what in the name of almighty fuck they're going to do.
You see, this is all well and good for their daughter and Freg to fancy each other. That's fine. With their daughter,
I mean, Maeve's daughter, and O'Leil's kind of daughter-in-law. He was a consort, he wasn't the father.
anyway, she was the prized possession. She was used as a tactic to ally many kings and armies along.
Yeah, so she was engaged to half the fucking country and nobody told her.
Battle raid, cattle raid Cooley, and you know how that one goes. A whole other story, but they needed a lot of people because Cuchulainn was on the other side of that army. So anyway, they were wondering what they're going to do. So Maeve said maybe we can tactfully do something, you know, take him away. I could maybe escort him off the premises. All was, oh, no, I know what you're going to do. Yeah, escort him. Escort him with your vagina. I know what you're doing. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill him dead. And we can't kill him. That's just really against the rules of etiquette. When people come for a feast, they don't expect to be dead after.
It's poor form.
It's poor form. Whatever about a battlefield, this is very eyes on us at the moment.
otherworldly characters pulling up. You can't just be killing the main writer. So let's just think about this. And all he said, I've got a great plan. We'll take him to the pool of paste, and we'll let the paste eat him. Because paste love eating pretty young lads.
Any young lads, really. They're not fuzzy.
Any people, really. So, O'Leil set off. He brought Frey with him and a consort. A small group of them headed off. And there was a pool. Basically, O'Leil said, do you want to go swimming? It's a really hot day. Let's go for a little dip in this plunge pool. It's a really nice plunge pool. And they got to the plunge pool and said, go on, get in. I won't, though. Swim away. And so Frey thought it was a bit weird to have a few lads just looking at him as he derobed and got in. And they couldn't not look at him. He was just really hot. Like everything about him. Great. Everything. Anyway, he was swimming away, and well, O'Leil took this chance to look in his bag. Now he looked in and he saw the fucking ring. Now, something came over O'Leil, and it was a mixture between anger and betrayal and bloodlust. But he went fucking a bit psycho at this point. He saw the ring that Finnever had gifted to Frey. Now, this was not hers to give. This was what May had given to Finnever to keep secret and keep safe, and then gift one day to someone they had tried and tested and allied to. And so now to see Frey with his ring was abhorrent to him. And so he became very, very angry, very, very furious, and wanted Frey very, very dead. And, well, suddenly he just said, over there.
I was debating
Next to the apple tree. He said, you see the apple tree? Next to the apple tree, there's a rowan tree. Don't get me an apple, I don't want a fucking apple. Get me a rowan tree. Okay, get the rowan berries. Well, do you want the rowan berries? Right. So he swam over thinking, grand, not an apple guy. I like apples, but I won't get him an apple. I'll get him a rowan berry. Went to reach the rowan berry, but the rowan berries were protected by the paste. So suddenly, the water started thrashing. And Frey said, fuck, there's a paste in this water. I know a paste, I see one. And suddenly the paste, the big ugly head of the paste roared up and, well, it smashed the water to the other side of the river. And he saw O'Leil do something strange. He saw him cast the ring into the water. He saw a salmon leap up and swallow it and catch it as he was headlocking this great big paste. And he said, give me a sword, please, want someone to help me, as he was dragged down under the water. And when he was dragged down under the water, he saw the salmon swimming by who he caught, and he flung out onto the other side of the water. And flopping away there, he saw it flopping and around the place, but then the paste was dragging him and drowning him and fighting him. And so he decided to play this up and said, don't look over there. Nothing's over there. Look at me. Give me a sword. Someone give me a fucking sword. I'm going to die. This paste is going to kill me. And so Finnever, who was also there.
She'd been there the whole time.
Oh no, she was there apparently. She arrived on the scene, she took off her dress, no one fucking looked at her, and she took a sword and she threw it into the water, and she dove into the water. I flew, flying and diving with the sword, diving and throwing. It was a dive throw. She dove and threw at the same time to make sure her love would get the sword. It was very, very dramatic. And in a fit of rage, O'Leil realised he fucking had enough of this one. He took up a spear and threw it at her and split her hair right down the middle and hit the paste. Now, Fred pulled the spear out of the paste, tried to lamp it in again, took the sword off Finnever and lopped its head off as blood, well, turned the whole lake red. He pulled himself out. He saw the salmon on the side of the river with the ring in it. He saw everyone gathering around and seeing if Finnever was all right, and he had a gashing wound on the side of him. He was very confused as to why O'Leil was trying to kill Finnever for the love that he had. Whenever he had a wound, whenever he had something that was bad in this world, and the hill nearby opened up. 50 women came out singing. And they said, oh, Fred, you beautiful thing. Come here. And so he gladly went off, picking up the salmon as he went, and throwing it to his buddies. Keep that. Don't you fucking let O'Leil. He's a psycho. He ducked off into the underhill with the 50 women from the other world, and he was cured and healed and happy out for a fairly short amount of time.
See, he was determined to figure out what the fuck was going on with Finnever and her suddenly erratic father. Now, while he was gone, Maeve and O'Neill had another one of their conversations about the pros and cons of murdering their guest. And maybe it was the way the hillside opened up and the 50 she-women came out singing, "They're beautiful, but they're fucking dangerous." They decided that maybe they should shelve the whole murder plan.
Yeah, it wasn't working out. It wasn't working out.
But O'Neill, Maeve, was finding him even more difficult than usual to reason with because he was furious and fixated on this ring. Maeve kept saying, "It's not that big a deal," and O'Neill kept saying, "It's a big deal. She needs to produce that ring at the feast. She needs to show me that she still has that ring, or she's gonna die."
I think O'Neill mistook the ring for sex, but I don't know. Did he?
I'm pretty sure the ring was a symbol, but anyway.
Yeah, okay. I was getting very confused. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a symbolic ring.
Which ring?
O'Neill ring.
I'm not gonna, we'll find that under questions we're not gonna answer. Leave it to your own imagination. Now, Frake, when he came back from the other world, he went to one of the buddy who he tossed the salmon to and said, "I want you to bring that to Finnever and tell her to cook it and bring it to the feast." And he turned up at the feast, and it was oddly tense. Even though the musicians were playing, O'Neill kept just weirdo glaring at his daughter. And eventually, O'Neill said, "I want you to show me the ring. Show me the ring, the precious ring that your mother gave you that you swore never to give away till you were married." And Finnever was a bit tongue-tied. She didn't know where it was. She didn't know what to tell him. She said, "I lost it." And then Freyek stood up and said, "Well, hang on now. I think I know what's going on here. And I want to reassure you. Finnever, if you bring out that salmon that I gave you earlier," and he cut the salmon open and he showed that the ring was inside it. And he said, "I found this ring. I just found it on the ground where someone had dropped it. And I thought to myself, that's a really nice ring. It looks like a symbol of somebody's virginity and I should keep it for them because they'll probably be wanting it back. And so I put it in my bag for safekeeping. Definitely didn't try to draw her by the banks of the river the first day I met her.
No, definitely.
And then when I was in the pool wrestling the page, I saw you throw it in the water and I saw a salmon eat it. And so that's where it is. But there was no funny business. There was no hanky-panky. It was all above board. And I would now like to formally petition to you to allow me to marry your daughter." O'Neill said, "Fuck you. Only if you give me all your cows.
Magic ones?
All of them.
What?
Everyone.
Outrageous.
I don't believe it."
She's not that hot.
Gold digger.
I mean, he was. And then Maeve said, all right. Everybody needs to just fucking chill the fuck out, calm the fuck down, sit the fuck down. Little less testosterone at the top table here. It's all have a nice drink. So she proposed that instead of delivering his entire wealth to her family in exchange for her daughter's hand, she said, no, see, we have this little war coming up. We're going to raid Ulster. Not a big deal, just a brown bull. Need to go there, get it, come back. In and out. 20-minute adventure.
It will not be complicated.
Preferably cattle that never run dry. So how about this, Frank? You drive your cattle to Croghan. We'll go in on this little Ulster raid just to cool you in back. And when you come back to Croghan, when you and my daughter Finnever return safe from the war, we'll have a wedding for you right here. And Frake agreed. Finnever agreed. And they were very, very happy and excited for a little while.
Now, Fred went back to the other world, and he saw 50 cows were gone. They'd been fucking stolen. And he thought, well, that's my chance of a favour up the Swanee. So he turned the bow on his aunt, the goddess, who'd seen all, and she said they went north. Thanks, he said. And they went marching north. Now, north from Connacht to still up Ulster. And we got the Ulster border. Colonel Carnick was there with the forked beard, and he was there, where are you going? And he said, I'm going off to get my cows back from, I don't know whoever nicked them. They're off, I think they're in the Alps, even though I'm not really sure. But they were in the Alps. And Colin Carnick said, what's that? A quest? Don't mind if I do. And so the two lads went fucking herring off to the Alps, and they got there in double quick time because they were big lads. And they strode very fucking fast, and they picked up the speed. And when they got there, they saw, well, they didn't see much because they couldn't fucking find anything because they didn't know where they were. And they were in the Alps. It was very tall, it was very fucking cold. And anyway, then they saw a woman who said, who are you doing? You're speaking Irish. Or something that sounds like Irish. You're from somewhere close to where my mom's from, I'm fairly sure. And she said, what? Are you Mary's daughter? Are you? Ah, Jesus, I know you're from off the road.
You're not related to Tom Flanagan, are you?
For fuck's sake, ah, Jesus, you're the head off your mother anyway. You're the head off your mother. And so, sure enough, the mother had been a slave. She was stolen by these fuckers in the Alps who liked stealing stuff from Ireland. Loads of people back in the day liked stealing stuff from Ireland. We're very, very easy to steal from. Stealable from Ireland. Anyway, they'd been stolen, and she said, look, my mum is in charge of a load of cows. They're new apparently, but she's in charge of it, she's trusted. And all of the warriors that are there, well, you know what? You and this, the 9 warriors that are guarding the precious cows. But be warned, there is a paste. I don't know a fucking paste. Yes, there's a paste. And it's a big paste. It's how big? It's a big fucking paste. So watch out for him. So look, I'll leave. You talk to me, man. They talked to the man, and the man said, look, I'll leave the door open when I'm going to bed. Say nothing about it. I won't get the blame. They trust me. Good on you. Go on, get in the fuck. Go on, get in the fuck. Don't look around. And so the lads snuck in at night, and well, they saw the 12 warriors snoozing away. They weren't too worried about them. They gathered the 50 cows and they fucked off out of there. But suddenly the paste, the fucking paste, the big paste, fucking paste is coming out from there. Oh, fucking Jesus Christ, the big paste. And well, Fred, being an almighty, beautiful, cunning fucker that he was, he stood behind the Colin Carnick. Because he thought, he might be easier to kill after he tries to fucking kill this man. And well, Colin Carnick didn't know what to do, so he stood tall and he kind of wiggled his hips. He said, fuck, what am I going to do? Ah, no! And suddenly the paste between his legs started doing something to the paste up there, and the paste up there looked in between the legs, and the paste in his legs looked at the paste up there, and suddenly, well, we all know what it's like when we don't really think with our minds, we think with our dicks. Well, this man was now thinking very much with the top of his dick, which seemed to be calling towards the paste. Believe this or not, believe it or not, this is fucking true. The paste jumped into his girdle. Now, I seem to have shrunk or at least matched his size, because it wasn't massive. No, it was like average size. Let's just call it average, okay? It was at least average. At least average, okay? At least I know his at least average penis was now rolling around his at least average penis, and well, they were spooning each other, or they were comforting each other. Maybe they were rubbing up against each other, whatever way it was. Colin Carnick was now moving with not a lot of awareness, because whatever it was the page did, he fucking did. And then the 9 warriors, they woke up. Remember the 9 warriors? Yeah, they fucking woke up. They came running at them. And suddenly, well, Colin Carnick was knocking men down because he was getting pulled. And Jesus, Jesus, and suddenly the 9 men were dead. And Fred looked around and said, Jesus, that place. And the page eked out of the leg of Colin Carnick and scuttled off and seemed to turn around and wink at him and go, thanks very much, and Fred got back with the 50 cows. He said, good luck to Colin Carnick. Run to them. Next time, great. I'll come with you. But you know what happens there.
Thank you very much, folks. That is it from us for tonight.
What? No.
That's it.
That's it, yeah.
What do you mean, what? It's fucking 9:30.
Pissed as fuck.
Have we no homes to go to? The good news is, we will hopefully be back. We used to be here every month, and we might even try and do that again.
Yeah, we're figuring out the whole live gigging thing again, and we realised gig economy was very hard on us,
Yeah.
physically, mentally, and emotionally, and it wasn't great for the bank balance. So we diversified. Now we're on YouTube. Hi, YouTube, and we have a podcast. You can support us on Patreon, and we do workshops in schools and shit like that now these days as well, which is great fun. And so we'll be doing more gigs. If you want to catch up with us, check us out on social media. And if you really want an extra story, just ask her nicely. She comes
Story.
Give us the best of incest.
Oh.
You know you want it. You wouldn't make Maeve look good.
Yeah.
You wouldn't make Maeve. This is make.
Do you know what? We gotta give the sensible people a chance to clear out. Go on.
Yeah. Be sensible.
If you actually do need to go home now and get the bus or whatever for business time.
Me and my girlfriend got engaged.
Hey! No way! Congratulations!
Really?
We will do another one. So.
I mean, email us.
Thank you very much.
Probably.
We're pretty easy to convince about shit like that.
The ring out of salmon.
Our ring! Nice.
Alright. Okay. This is the worst love story that I can think of that Oisin requested.
Alright.
So if you're still in a romantic mood.
And this is for the newly engaged couple.
No, it isn't.
It's absolutely for the newly engaged couple.
Dedicate this to them.
You gotta, send them off. There's a bit of warning.
This is the story. Jeez. Maeve the beautiful, Maeve the deadly, Maeve the terrifying. The thing that you have to understand about Queen Maeve was that she was the sane one in her family. Of all of the daughters of the High King, she was the one who was the calmest and the least violent and the most rational. But she had a sister who was a little bit interesting. And her name was Clothru. Now Clothru, like Maeve, was the daughter of the High King of Ireland and the Queen of Connacht, Cruacha. And she went to Connacht to claim her inheritance as the Queen of Connacht. Clothru before Maeve. Clothru had this idea in her head, you see. She decided she wanted to be the head of a lineage of kings. Now some people say that Clothru spent a little bit of time in the other world, maybe ate some of that fruit that makes you go a little bit crazy, but Clothru didn't go crazy.
She spent.
Clothru went really sane. Everything made absolutely perfect sense to her. She could see it all before her. And so one day when she was Queen of Connacht, her three brothers, so her father and mother had triplet sons as well, the Finemna. They arrived at her door, and the three triplets said they were going to try and overthrow their father, the High King. We're going to try and take over, because 3 heads are better than 1. And they'd take his off anyway. And they were going to take the fight to him the very next day. And would she, Clothru, their sister, fight beside them? And Clothru said, no, you're going to lose. But the 3 of you have the blood of kings. And I have the blood of kings. And I want to be the mother of all the greatest kings. To have a little bit more wine before the battle. Yeah, I told you this was a terrible story.
She's my sister.
Way to lead into the Now the Finemna died. Finemna were murdered. They were killed by their father, who was devastated by having to kill them. But after all, they tried to kill him. They were betrayed by poor Nessa, the fucking snake, at the last minute as well. But Clorú gave birth to a very unusual looking baby boy.
Aww.
A lovely, hale, hearty baby boy. And the head of him looked just like one of the Finemna. And the torso of him looked just like the second brother. And the legs of him looked just like the third triplet. And he had 2 stripes, one around his neck and one around his waist, to show that he had 3 dads. And as Clorú watched her own son grow into a fine, strapping young man, she thought to herself, you know what's better than a king whose 3 fathers are kings and his mother is a king? Would be if he had a child with his mother. And we just kind of doubled down on this whole
So say.
And all of the high kings of Ireland, for as long as we had them,
There's a reason
proudly,
stopped having them, I think.
proudly claimed their descent from Clorú and her son.
Have a great night, guys! Happy Valentine's Day, guys!
And thank you, YouTube, for watching. This is the first time we've ever live streamed the fucking thing successfully. Say hello to them. Look at that. Yay! Well done. Thank you for making us look cool. Thank you. You're making us look very good. I appreciate it.
Louis told a story in front of the priest in the pub.
They know better.
Sorry.
There isn't such a thing as royalty.